Good morning and welcome to Valley Views. I'm your host, Glenn Edison, and we're certainly glad to have you and thankful for BTC Fiber, our sponsor. You can see us on BTC Fiber YouTube page as well as BTC Fiber Channel 18. We are going down to Pickett's Trout Ranch, so we'll be able to see more of our interview with Steven Pickett, the owner of the Pickett's Trout Ranch, and you'll see that coming up.
This is where all the trout magic comes from. TVA years ago did a survey trying to figure out how much water came through here. They were rough guess, and it was early summer, it was about 12,000 gallons a minute, which is really great for trout. Unfortunately, during drought years, it doesn't look like this. It looks like a little creek coming through here. And that's when things get dicey. But so essentially, my granddad built this first dam over here. He was one of the first people in the valley that ever operated a water ring, and it's a way to pump water through pressure alone. There's no energy required. So what he did was dam it up, ran pipes starting with the largest he could get, and choked it down, and that force, that pressure, went down to a little pump that was about 600 feet that way. And then in turn, that water ram, the pressure of that water drove it to push water up to their house, which is a quarter of a mile away. So it worked out real well. It runs all the time, so they just, whatever excess water, they'd run off into livestock and what have you. But so that was the original dam. This one down here, my dad and my granddad built in 1962. And originally it was just cinder block. They built it as quick as they could during the driest months that they could. Probably August, September, something like that. And that lasted for a long time. Eventually, when electric pumps were developed, and that's how they got all their water. We rebuilt it. I was a kid, but I worked a lot. I remember that. It was 1985, I think, when concrete pumps first came onto the scene. So we formed it off, and my dad primarily, I helped, and a couple other guys. Formed it off, pumped concrete up here and re-supported the entire structure. So I'm hoping it lasts my lifetime, because I really don't want to work on it ever again. That's just too much. But right now the water conditions are great. We've had a couple of wet years. This time of year it can get dry. I've seen it about 3 years ago. We had a little May and early June drought, and that became problematic. And I can explain the measures I can take to try to combat that, but ultimately what it boils down to is you've got to have enough water to raise the amount of trout that I have. So,
if you don't have the water, then they can die from lack of oxygen. Right?
That's exactly right. And the more water you have, the more oxygenated it is, because it stirs.
Right.
So our aquifer, one of my best friends is a geologist, and his best guess is that our aquifer is probably 100 square miles of just little fissures out on the plateau that eventually lead down here. Yeah. And so our water is naturally, every time water rolls over, it's beaten, and it's cleared of a lot of bacteria, a lot of problems that you might have, contaminants that get filtered out, because all this comes from a limestone watershed, which this entire valley has. There's actually quite a few places like this that people have never seen in the valley that I have, because I stock fish for them or whatever, And folks just don't want to advertise it because you get people knocking on your door all, what I mean. But yeah, this valley's loaded with these types of springs. So it hopefully will just stay this way as long as I'm around. Somebody else can deal with it after that.
Yeah. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, we don't use house water out of this anymore. I had to have a controlled water source for the FDA, so we dug a well on that to be dealt with. Top water, generally, they have no class or structure for how to deal with that. Even if you filter it, rules, a lot of rules.
Yeah, I'll pitch these guys some. If you were tiny, they would eat you. I've seen them. A buddy of mine, we're sitting down here on the porch one day. This really cool little red lizard. I don't know, I haven't seen anyone like it since. I don't know why it was red. We got a little green anoles everywhere. But it was around and he was like, I want to get it, man. I want to pet it, you know. Whatever, see if I can catch it. And it freaked out and jumped off into the water, immediately snatched up by a big trout. I was like, dude, you just murdered the coolest lizard I've ever seen. We host events. We have several church groups that come yearly. They bring folks. We've had school groups come before. We're always willing to entertain anything like that somebody might be interested in. We host weddings here. We have limited facilities, but we're a lot less expensive than some of the professionals that do it all the time. We just let you do your thing and use our property. So there's the gazebo. We've had maybe 4 or 5 weddings in the past 4 or 5 years. What we're standing in is our pavilion, so we have running water and bathrooms and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just another part of the business of having a pretty piece of property and wanting to be able to share it. So.
Yeah. And you have a lot of local groups as well come, right?
A lot of local groups, a lot of veterans groups that come, and they'll, one of the ones that was coming a lot last year, they help fund Vietnam veterans, and they'll bring them out, and you know, if they have disabilities or something, they'll make sure everything, you know, is capable for them, and they'll pay for whatever they catch and just take them out for a day of fishing. And it's been good. That was a great group. I was happy to entertain them.
And I imagine when you have children or students that come out here and maybe they catch that first fish, that really excites them.
We have done that with homeschool groups. With, you know, county schools, it's kind of difficult to, what are you going to do with the fish that you catch? But we have done tours. As I mentioned earlier, we worked with the aquarium in the past where they would bring out groups of folks, some of their VIPs, and we do tours and cookouts, and so anything like that is always on the table. It just depends on our availability and what the weather's going to do. And I guess since the whole last year situation, we haven't done a lot of group stuff, but it seems like that's
how can people
changing.
get in touch with you?
The best way is you can email me at pickett.trout.ranch at gmail.com, or you can actually text me, please, only 423-718-0801. That's the two best ways I can think of to get
Okay.
hold of me.
Well, that way we'll try to promote that too.
Yeah.
And get people out. And I know you enjoy that, but the scenery around here is beautiful.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just to come look.
Right, yeah. I have a sawmill, so my passion is art, because
Right.
that's what I went to school for. I've made a living at it for 10 or 12 years on and off. So I make all these swings and all the wood carving. I sell lumber in certain situations if I've got something that somebody's looking for. So there's a lot of different things we can do here, and long-term plans. My shop over there is halfway complete. The bottom's pretty much done, but we're going to build a kind of a gallery space upstairs and hope to kind of feature some other local artists, and
Oh, that'd be good.
kind of build a little business on that end of it too, because that's really what I enjoy doing.
Well, there are a lot of local artists around.
There are.
They just don't necessarily have the opportunity to promote their stuff.
They sell in Chattanooga, Nashville, and Franklin.
Yeah.
That's where they sell, in Atlanta if they get lucky. So yeah, I mean, art's not a huge market. Most folks just do it because they love it, and they have to do it for their own happiness, but it's always nice to sell something too.
Oh yeah. And being an artist, you put a lot of time into that. It's not just sit down one day and do it and you're done.
No, I've been training, if you want to call it that, working at it, enjoying it for 30 plus years now.
Yeah.
Started out in painting, got into woodworking, and so now I'm primarily focused on woodworking, but I do rocking chairs, swings, custom furniture, tables, all kinds of face carvings, and any of that sort of thing. It's just kind of whatever somebody's looking for.
You're just an all-purpose guy. Well, it's almost like you got your own little craft area down here. Where
I do, and all the materials, like all the logs, come off our property, and I have done some custom mills for people with the mill, but it's not my focus. It's just kind of for friends or whatever that they have a project in mind. But it's good to stay busy, and I have no shortage of busy going on.
Well, that's good. Now, going back to your trout, about how many trout do you have? I mean, on a regular basis?
So we hatch 40,000 a year.
40,000 a year.
And generally my eggs are ready by early January, sometimes late December, but as soon as they're ready, they'll let me know, because they know I've got a standing order every year. Out of that 40,000, if I get 80% living fish, market size fish out of it, that would be fantastic. Generally, it's more like 70 to 30%, or 70 living, 30 lost. But attrition is just kind of a part of it. It's like any kind of farming. You're going to lose pigs. You're going to lose chickens. It's a little bit different scale because I'm working with so many. So those numbers are going to be, a lot different. But like I say, past couple of years, knock on wood, we've had plenty of rain, hadn't been overly hot. So if I get years like that, then I can count on that better survival rate, and that's encouraging. So this is where we hatch our eggs. I order eggs out of Washington State from a family-owned farm out there. That's what they specialize in, and they do a great job. Nisqually Trout Farm is what they're called. They're right on the Nisqually River in Oregon. But So all this does is replicate what we've done out here with the bigger fish, which you'll see in a bit. These I have standpipes I can put in, and it raises the water up to here. If you'd have been here 2 weeks ago, you'd have gotten to see all the little fish swimming in here, but I've moved them out to the big run last week. So I ordered the eggs. They basically overnight them to me. And what I do is suspend them in these baskets. The rails are off the top because the rails hold it. But what they do is sit about here, just underneath, about 2 inches underneath the water level. I spread the eggs out, and they come in these little cubes like this. So I just put them out, kind of fan them around. In nature, trout, salmon, any of that species of fish, they tend to mother their young to a degree. So what they'll do is once they lay fertilized eggs, well, they lay eggs, a male will come out and fertilize them in rocky, shallow areas, and they'll kind of hang around and fan the eggs so that they all separate. You don't want them touching. So there's a little bit of work involved. I'll spend an hour every evening down here just fanning eggs like a mama fish would.
Yeah.
And that just keeps them separated. I get out the dead ones, move them on out. Keeps any kind of bacterial problems from happening. So it's a little bit labor intensive, but it pays me to hatch my own eggs. There used to be a guy in Bucksnort that did, and then they sold to another guy, and I don't think he hatches his own eggs, but he may. But I was one of two that have done that in the past 30 years. Trout farming used to be a bigger deal in Tennessee. It's still quite large in North Carolina. There's a bunch of farmers over there.
Well, you know, from the road, you wouldn't necessarily, well, of course, coming off of 28 up the road, you wouldn't think about something like this here.
No, we used to have a highway sign, and I took it down because we were just getting a little too much of the wrong kind of interest.
Oh, yeah.
People, you know, knocking on my door at 10 o'clock at night, wanting to fish, and I'm like, what in the... So, yeah, we took that down. We sort of just have an online social media presence is sort of the only way that we market. I used to, when we first started, I spent a little bit of money trying to market because we were brand new and nobody knew what we were about. But I've got a set of customers commercially that I don't need to add any more of that. We are looking, you know, at growing in the attraction sense of it, which is hit or miss. You never know. You know, you could sit here all day, not see anybody, or you could have 100 people. It's impossible to say. So that's always kind of a roll of the dice either way. But you know, ultimately, I see us going more as an attraction, as a destination sort of business, and it's just easier, and I don't have to leave.
And they could come here, and they have a variety of things they could do. They could either fish, or they can do the arts and crafts stuff.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah.
So
we've hosted Boy Scout campouts. You know, if it's a private event, we let folks float in the lake here or swim or whatever they want to do. You know, fish. It's up to them. So we do rent out the facility for overnight events. Just has to be kind of the right group for that to work out. So.
And so you said you've been at this about 10. Well, working at it for about 10 years.
No, I've been making money at art for about 10 years. At least something you could call money. No, we rebuilt everything in 03. My dad and my granddad, like I was telling you, were the first one, well, second trout farm in the state, or maybe I didn't say that, I can't recall, but, so my dad worked for a guy that, when he was in college in the early 60s, that started the first trout farm in the state of Tennessee. Moved here from Minnesota, worked for the TWRA, and just wanted to see if it worked. Well, Dad worked for them for one summer when he was in college, and worked directly under this guy, and just started telling him about, you know, the spring that we had and all that. And this fella was like, you probably have the perfect setup. I want to come look at it. So he came down, they met with my granddad. He drew it out on a piece of paper what they needed to do. And my dad talked my granddad into taking a chance. And they went and got a little business loan and built this place. I couldn't give you the number. I want to say it was like 10,000 or something maybe. And that was to get them started, and you know, fish and feed and all that stuff you got to have, plus all the concrete. And Dad operated. My granddad died in '76. It was kind of his retirement thing. And he died in '76. Dad ran it until 1980. Of course, he was a local school principal, teacher, superintendent ultimately. And I think it was in 1980, we had a really bad drought. I would have only been 9, I guess, at that point, so I wasn't aware of all that. But he lost a bunch of fish, decided just to give it a break, and bulldozed everything down, cleaned it all up down here. And for the longest time, it was just our own little personal, you know, hangout spot. But I guess it was about 2001 I started thinking about it. As I was in and out of the beer and liquor business and meeting a lot of chefs, and it just occurred to me that people might really support a local aquaculture. So I did my due diligence, I guess, my research, whatever, looked into it, read a couple books about trout farming, and employed my dad to come help me build it. And same thing, went and got a loan. It was a lot more money than that. But anyways, we rebuilt everything in '03. I think I was functional and selling by '04.
Oh,
so it's 20 years almost.
Well, is there anything we haven't mentioned, you left out that you want to tell
You need
us?
to come see some art. That's what y'all need to do.
Hey everybody, this is Glenn Edison from Valley Views. We appreciate you watching our shows, and we would like for you to like, share, and follow us on Facebook, as well as like and subscribe to our YouTube page.
Brought to you by Bledsoe Telephone Cooperative, your full-service telecommunications provider right here in the Sequatchie Valley.